Mayday, here. 72, we have smoke in the cabin.
Channel 72, contact, 119.
Good evening and welcome to the February 2022 transmission from Galactic Terrors, the online reading series that scours the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, dark humor, and all sorts of literary oddities from the weirdest, wildest, most imaginative authors writing in a variety of fascinating genres. Tonight we have three fantastic readers, Chris Ryan, Curtis M Lawson, and Linda D Addison. I'm Jim Chambers, and with me is my co-host, Carol Gyzander.
Hi, I'm Carol Gyzander. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much. Yeah, we're happy to see everybody. If you're here for the first time, welcome. We hope you enjoy it. We always like to know where people are tuning in from, so feel free to throw your location in the chat if you care to share. For those of you who are back again, what's wrong with you? No. Thank you very much. Yes, we appreciate it. We're always glad to see some familiar names in the chat and have everybody hang out with us for a little while. So for those of you who tuned in last month, we did something a little different, and we had several of our HWA New York chapter members come on and talk about some of our standout books from 2021. So tonight we are back in fashion with our regular reading lineup, and we're excited to kick off. I guess this really is our first set of readings for 2021 then.
2022.
Oh my God, yes.
Ooh.
Okay, I just kind of like skipped the whole year there, didn't I?
I know. I never know when it is. It's because to me every day is Blur's Day anymore because yeah.
I hope I said 2022 at the top of the opening there, but you never know. But this is our first reading, and we're excited to welcome Christopher and Curtis for the first time to Galactic Terrors, and we're very excited to welcome Linda back. She read with us before, and it was a true pleasure, so we're very happy that she agreed to come back to Galactic Terrors with a minimum of arm-twisting, bribery, and other blackmail efforts.
Yes. So that's always exciting. So that's fun.
Yes.
Well, there's a lot of things that have been going on while we were not reading last month, but there's a whole bunch of things going on with Stoker Con, the convention coming up, and I may know somebody who's a little bit involved with that. Jim Chambers and Brian Matthews are the two folks who are running that. Jim, you got any news you want to share on Stoker stuff? What's going on?
Yeah, Brian and I and the whole StokerCon team, it's an amazing team effort. We're working away to put programming together and hoping to start announcing actual panel programming in early March, announcing the Horror University lineup soon after that. And I think we'll be announcing the author reading lineup as soon as my
as soon as I organize that, you mean?
Co-host,
yeah.
who we persuaded to coordinate our readings, gets around to the lineup.
No, it's going to be a lot of fun. There's so many great folks who've offered to read, and I'm very excited to get to know them and get it organized and get things set up. And you know me, I love a good spreadsheet, so yeah, can't beat that.
Yes. So I think we also have some news to report from the HWA about the Sears table.
Yes, it's just come out. For those who are not familiar, on the horror.org website, there's quite a few interesting and fascinating blog posts. And every month, the Sears table, it's something from the diverse Diverse Works Inclusion Committee, and they put up a number of folks that they would like to call attention to. They actively seek out and expand our members of awareness of writers and editors with diverse backgrounds. So please go take a look on the website. It's at horror.org category, the Sears table, but you can also see it right from the main page. Lots of great folks on there, so please go check them out.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people around tonight, and Carol and I included, who have some projects in the works going on. You're going to hear us talk about them a little bit tonight, so we'll try not to chew anybody's ear off about it. But I think the first one that I'd like to mention is a special online presentation coming up at the end of February that Carol is coordinating, which will feature Megan Arcuri, Amy Grech, and Nicole Givens-Kurtz. And this is going to be a Women in Horror Month reading through the Syosset Public Library. Carol, do you want to give us some more details?
Sure. I'm really looking forward to it. And it's a kind of a fun thing to say that last year we had D Addison join in with us for this same event. And it was so much fun. It was so wonderful when they asked us to do it again. We said, sure. Well, we grabbed Nicole because she was one of the authors that was on our list of folks that we recommend you check out. And so she says, sure, I'll be happy to come and read with you. It's 2 weeks from tonight, February 24th. It's at 7 o'clock online, and we'll have the link that we can we got the link in there already. Thank you.
Yes.
So you can click on that. That goes to the library site, and we'll do the same thing we did last year, where each of us will give 5 authors we recommend, and I'll try and make a little video. I am not as good as Lou Rera, who makes our videos for this show, but it's still fun. It only takes me 2 days to make a 55-second video. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. It's fun. It's fun. No, but I'm really looking forward to that. And the really amusing thing about timing is one of the other things on the horror.org website from HWA is all these fabulous interviews every day about the Black heritage in horror. And there's a different author every day. It's really fascinating. Some really great people to find out about and know more about. And today, as it just so happens, is Nicole Givens-Kurtz is her interview on the site. And she's the one we're having in 2 weeks to come to the other. I didn't even know that the timing was going to work out that way.
Exciting. And I'll put the link to that interview in the chat.
Yes.
So if
Please
anyone wants
go
to
check out her
that
interview,
out.
and you'll see why you want to come and listen to me and Megan and Amy read with Nicole, because it's going to be way cool. And
all right. And the other thing that we're going to be talking about, and I'll keep this short, so I know we're keeping people from hearing the readings. We'll talk some more about it at the end of the program. But Carol and I have recently co-edited a new anthology of ghost stories. If you follow either of us on social media of any kind, the chances are you have already heard something about this. It's called Even in the Grave, and it features a selection of ghost stories that span quite a range of time period, location, and tone and theme. And it's a tremendous amount of fun. eSpec Books is publishing it. It's currently being promoted with a Kickstarter campaign, and we'll share some more information about that later too. But we're really excited about it. So if you like ghost stories, you're definitely going to want to give that a look and see if it haunts you at all.
Yes. And while it's not an official HWA publication, you will actually see a lot of HWA New York members in there, because we live near each other. We hang out with these writers. We invited them to submit stories. So a lot of our friends are in it. It's very cool.
Yes.
We have
several Galactic Terrors veterans are in the book. So
yeah.
All right. Well, I suppose we probably have reached the limits of our audience's patience.
Of course, one of the reasons that we chat is because sometimes people come in late and we don't want them to miss the beginning of somebody's reading. That's, of course, why we do this. It's not that we like to hear ourselves do that. Well, okay,
no,
it is.
That's not it.
Yeah.
So, but Carol, why don't you? Actually, I think I am.
Oh, yeah, you're going to start us, right?
I am introducing our first reader for the evening. All right. Horror Writer Association New York Chapter new secretary, Christopher Ryan. Christopher has recently joined the New York chapter and was kind enough to volunteer to be our chapter secretary. Thank you for that, Chris. Chris has been an award-winning journalist, teacher, podcaster, sketch comedy troupe co-founder, actor, indie film producer and director, Teachers Union president, and Board of Ed vice president. But mostly he writes fast-paced stories with humor and heart, including 4 novels, as well as short stories and novellas. He's worked with writer Alex Simmons for over 30 years, most recently on the writing podcast Tell the Damn Story for over 200 episodes. For more information, check out chrisryanwrites.com. All right. Welcome, Chris.
All right. I have 2 for you, okay? The first was published on shotgunhoney.com, a crime publisher I know, but this was written as horror. Vengeance come my way. Fog in motion, like being dragged underwater by rough hands. I exist mostly in the dark dreams of turbulent ruin. Occasionally, I break the surface and gasp for air, only to inhale the foul breath of a stranger brutally overwhelming me. The lone mercy comes when the blackness pulls me down to the underworld once more. This pattern continues for eternities. Veins invaded, mind, body, soul violated. Night's evil is all I know. Sometimes a slap grips me back for a brief, horrific experience of pain and humiliation. I learn to ache for the peace of chemical oblivion. And then 1,000 ice-cold needles assault me. I discover I am naked in a shower, a much smaller girl standing over me. With surprising strength, she forces me to remain under the freezing water until she sees what she wants in my eyes and ends the frigid storm. She commands, "Can you walk?" I stagger a step or 2 before finding my balance, then nod. From her backpack, she tosses me a huge purple hoodie, a pair of high-top cons that pinch my toes. "We are getting out of here," she says, like that's actually possible. I realize this tiny thing is insane. She will end up drugged and on a bed next to me, getting debased by an endless line of perverts. But then we step out of the bathroom and my brain slams shut. I am astounded. "Watch your step," says the pixie. That line of pervs I just mentioned, they fill the hallway, massacred, 2 and 3 deep in places, stabbed, throats cut, 2 are skewered on a lance. One has been maced, as in head caved in with an actual spiked club. Another is hanging by what looks like a bullwhip. One punk's jugular is spraying blood where a throwing star is plunged deep, turning the floor crimson. I recognize each of these bastards. Their faces burned into my soul over cruel years of constant abuse. This hallway is the most inspiring sight of my entire horrid life. I look from the carnage to this girl who barely comes up to my chin. How? The tiny one shrugs. Your captor fancied himself a collector of weapons. Made the job so much easier. And what'd you do to him? Clever little creep. Surrounded his office with motion sensors. Found that out after 3 nights of surveillance. But I know a guy who knows a guy who had what I needed. Perfect for that beast's love of old weapons. What gets past motion sensors? She flicked an eyebrow. Homemade modernized mustard gas. Burned out his lungs and skin and eyeballs. Horrible way to go. Thank you. My pleasure. The others? Got all 14. Most were in that basement dungeon. Yeah. The animal rotates us. Anger flared in her eyes. Not anymore. But then I've been tortured for too long. Yeah, right. Until someone else does. Never. We're taking you all to a private facility for medical treatment. Relocation to safe havens is being arranged now. We reach the back door of this innocent-looking suburban house. I see a school bus full of the girls, but I can't get myself to leave. This damn place will just get restaffed. The little Avenger winks. I got you. We pour gas everywhere. She even lets me light the match. We watch until my hell is engulfed in the flames it deserves. I expect to feel good, or free, or safe. Instead, break down before we get to the highway. Everyone does, except that girl. Hers is the first soothing voice I hear since age 7. It's going to take you a long time to get past this, but I have people who will help. I study her. The reality of this girl doesn't make sense in terms of what I just witnessed. I lean over and whisper, so tell me, what name does death go by? She looks pretty when she smiles. Call me Penelope. Okay. As I watched Galactic Terrors in July of 2021, specifically Sarah Tentlinger, especially her reading from The Devil's Dreamland, poetry inspired by H.H. Holmes, I was shocked to find myself spontaneously writing poems even as I listened. They poured out of me and were all from one character's point of view, and will eventually form a collection that is a horror crime story told in verse. It seems appropriate that I would share them here. So there's 3. But one note. If you like these, credit Sarah for her power to inspire complete strangers. But if they suck, she had nothing to do with it. Courtship. I held her hand until the end, like a gentleman should. By the time she left, the lights were flashing, turning the night red and blue again. Farewell, my love. Give my regards to the other wives. I promise to send more soon. Fine dining. I'm honest, so I'll confess my love for the feasts. Surprise is the opening course. Their eyes grow so full of life, perhaps for the very first time. That quickly gives way to the sudden, electric knowledge that existence is no longer theirs to squander. Oh, how it all gets so precious then. Panic sets in. A delicious second course. The subsequent struggle is scrumptious. Third course. Flesh on flesh. Flailing, fighting, squirming to be free until surrender. And then, there you are, my love, a delicate dessert. And finally, that New York sneer. The train was crowded. I do not like them touching me with their bodies, but the shopping is so worth it. Her dangling earrings gleamed, and I knew she was the one. Such a beauty would expire exquisitely. But then that young man sneered at me like I was a pervert. I wondered if he had a sister. He did. I confirmed it around 3 a.m. But she shocked me. First with her innocent beauty, then with her words. Eyes shut tight, she whispered, Daddy, Jeremy, don't get mad. I'll be good. My soul screamed. I fled her room, found Jeremy, and then I found Daddy, and then I worked on through the night. The morning papers twisted my heroics. They said the girl suffered from night terrors, and apologized always. Now, they say, she blames herself for her loving family's demise. No, no, 1,000 times no, sweet girl. There's no blaming you. The monster is obvious, is he not? Your brother should never sneer at strangers. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have to send a dozen roses and a box of chocolate to Sarah Tantlinger for her inspiration, sir.
Yeah, she lit me on fire.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And this all came out of one night. Have you written poetry before?
I wrote about 100 or 200 really awful poems in college that are
Okay.
really, yeah.
As we all did.
Out
Yes.
of all of them, there was one that survives. It's okay. If the public saw that one, I wouldn't mind. But then back and forth as I needed. Sometimes lyrics. I co-wrote a song with the New Voices of Freedom. I didn't know I was co-writing it. I just sent Dennis Bell my lyrics, and it happened to be right when he was writing, and then they fit. So that was pretty cool. And then whatever it needs, whether I was doing comedy or some poems. There's some poems in one of the books, The Former City of Woe, which has been rewritten. So as needed. And of course, you read and study. When you experience something like Sarah, you run out and grab us stuff and start studying. Oh, that's how it's done. Oh, I see.
Well, wait till you will be sitting here and having Linda read directly to us. It's like a private audience. It's wonderful.
That is
cool. Yeah. It is very cool.
To it.
No, that was great. And I also loved hearing your very smooth, calm voice reading those words of the poetry, not to mention the first part. The fun part to me out of that first piece was the snark that you added in, and then
Penelope's voice.
Yeah, Penelope's voice. Yeah,
that's how she sounds in my head.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know that you also do an awful lot of stuff online where you just go ahead and tell that damn story, right?
Yes, I have a podcast with the writer Alex Simmons. Award-winning comic book and prose author, and all-around legend. And we talk about the ups and downs of writing, and we have a lot of aspiring writers who visit the podcast. So we try to deconstruct some of the problems or talk about issue of the day occasionally. It's over 200 episodes, but you can pick and choose whatever title attracts you. It turns out that that Alex has something in common with Linda. They're in the same anthology together, and we interviewed that editor. So, small world and all that.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk some more about that at the end when we all come back on together.
That'll be very cool.
Yeah. There's one other thing that you do that I really love, and I see it on Instagram, and I don't know where else to find it. When you do the book pimp, you're standing on the corner.
The Neighborhood Connect. Yeah, the Neighborhood Connect. Yeah,
it's so cool.
That's it's based on guys I grew up with in Parkchester in the Bronx in the 70s, and the last the last 5 years or 10 years of my teaching career, the majority of kids were reading less and less. And then there was a core bunch of kids who would do anything to grab a book. They were real, cult followers. And that kind of, what if this guy is the only source of books, instead of going to pick up some weed from the guy, he's got books for you. So, yeah.
I know you like it. Yeah.
I know you like it. Come here, man. I got you. Yeah, that's really not that far away from me.
Well, you were a teacher for how many decades?
30 years. Yeah, 3 decades. 30 years. Yeah.
What's it
So,
like being retired now? You're recently
it's
retired?
yeah, it's this has been the first year of retirement, and the first 6 months or so was adjusting to the different life and figuring out how to do this. As
Mm,
finally get a chance to do this full time. I always,
mhm.
was always on top of or squeeze in between or during lunch hours or whatever. Um, and it's a different self discipline. And then I'm learning. I really, really need to learn the business end. Um, as you heard in the bio, I have had a lot of experience in teaching and union rep and all that sort of stuff. But the business end of being a writer is something that I'm studying and learning. And you send stuff out, and I'm
Mhm.
getting a little better at all of that stuff. And that's part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, you've got the great words, and now you're just going to add the business part on top of it.
Yep,
So that's way
that's
cool.
what I need. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
cool.
So, one thing I'm wondering is the writing. Did you change how you're when you're writing during the day?
Well, and each phase of life, I have twin sons, but they're adults now. But when they were little, I would get up at 3 or 4 o'clock and write then, because once they were awake, you know, you
Yeah,
had the
yeah.
focus was on them. So now, quite that early, sometimes, but not that often. And I'll check in with the world before sunrise, see a little bit of news or
Hmm.
something and have some tea. And then they get up to go to work. So I'm like, you know, see ya. And then I go to write. So I've had to adjust
Yeah,
that. It's pretty fascinating. What
yeah.
I
That's
have
pretty cool.
found is I've had to learn to force myself to leave the house, because let me just sit, and you're writing, and doing something. And then there's a knock on the door and they're home from work, and you're like, oh, hey, what's up? And you get up, and, it's like oil can, it's like the tin
Yeah,
woodsman. Yeah. So, it's
cool.
it's been a lot of fun. I had some monkeys on my back this last year or so. I had two independently published novels that they bothered me. One, I thought I could do a better job, and I wanted to do a better job for that. And the other one was kind of, what if this division in America continues? What would the world look like? And it was, I felt good about where it was and how it ended. And then January 6th happened and inverted all the meanings of the ending, and not in a good way. So I really wanted to redo those two things.
Ah.
I don't know if that makes them marketable or not marketable. They're both about 60% rewritten.
Hmm.
Um, but now I've finished those, whatever I decide to do with them from now, everything else is marketable. So now I'm readjusting that mindset forward. And then at night I get down on my knees and I pray and I pray, and I say, God, please just let me have an explosion like Teal James Glenn, uh,
The man who
the
sells a story a
legend.
minute. Yes.
Yeah, story a minute, Teal
Yeah.
James Glenn.
Yeah.
There you go.
And
Yeah,
they're good too.
great
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Great
yeah.
stuff.
We've had him on to read a number of times, and I look
Yeah,
forward to having him back. Yeah. Yeah.
always
Very
worthwhile. Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. So much fun talking with you.
This
And
has
now
been a
that
great
you're
opportunity. Yeah.
yeah, now that you're acclimated to your retired situation, I look forward to see what you're coming out with.
Well,
So that's gonna
I'll
be
let you know
terrific.
later, right? Is that what we talk about that later?
You got a week. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Fill
I've
us
got a
in.
couple of things. I got 3 things coming out this year, so
Oh, well, at the end
we'll
of the
see how
year,
it
you can
goes.
tell at the end of
End of the
tonight, tell
period,
us
I
about
will.
those. Yeah,
Yeah, so
that'll be
stay
cool.
tuned. Oh, it's a cliffhanger.
Stay tuned. Okay. Well,
Thanks.
what I'd like to do now is say thank you to Chris and introduce our next reader. Curtis M. Lawson is an author of unapologetically weird and transgressive fiction, fantastical graphic novels, and dark poetry. His work ranges from technicolor pulp adventures to bleak cosmic horror. Curtis is a member of the Horror Writers Association and the host of the Weird Transmissions podcast. He resides just outside of Providence, Rhode Island. Curtis?
Hello, everyone. First off, I want to apologize for the background. My office is too dark to record video in, so I'm in my gym. But tonight I'm going to be reading from, it's a short story from an upcoming collection I have that I can't really talk about too much yet, but should be coming out in August, hopefully. And this story is called A Wordless Hymn. I didn't anticipate reading this when I wrote it, and there's some Russian names and towns and such that I probably am not going to pronounce correctly, so my apologies there. A small town sits on a plateau overlooking the sea. Alongside Cedar Avenue, the road that leads to the town, a stake light shines up from the soil, illuminating a sign reading Dove Cliff, population 600. The night is still and quiet, save for the baying of dogs and the faint hint of a whistled song on the wind. Cedar Avenue is lined with light posts, but they are few and far between, and the mercury vapor light does little to alleviate the darkness of the tree-lined thoroughfare. Each casts only a small cone of light beneath it. Their narrow radiance makes the black of night seem even starker by contrast. Houses begin to crop up along the road into town, before Cedar Avenue branches into the numerous streets of Dove Cliff. Incandescent lights shine in empty windows. Doors, each marked with a cross in gray ash, have been left wide open to breathe in the night air and to exhale the sounds of radio plays and variety shows. Dogs howl and whine in their yards for their absent masters. Mosquitoes scout the night for blood, while flies swarm around pitchers of Kool-Aid and the spilled remnants of overturned beer bottles. Deeper into town, the occasional storefront breaks up the residential monotony. A barber's pole spins in an endless red and white spiral, while clumps of hair and discarded scissors lay on the floor inside. Circular Coca-Cola signs frame the words Powell's Drug beneath a green awning. Abandoned glasses of root beer and melted ice cream sit on the counter inside. Around the corner and 2 blocks down stands St. Thomas's Methodist Church. It seems modest as churches go, but it towers above the surrounding homes, and there's a subtle breed of power and dignity to its simple architecture. The arch of its roof points heavenward. The clapboard exterior mimics the white cliffs that are the namesake of the town, claiming their beauty and grandeur for its own. Candles burn within the vacant church. Their wavering light creates ghastly shadows and lends a ghoulish pale to cast to images of saints and messiahs. On the pulpit lay a Bible. The book is open to Romans chapter 12. Faint pencil marks bracket off several verses. Repay no evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals upon his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Scraps of paper sit on the pulpit beside the open Bible. A flowing script across the top sheet warns that opening one's heart to evil is more dangerous than opening one's home to it. A cemetery lays behind the church. Several plots are marked by freshly excavated soil. Each of these graves is marked with a small headstone commemorating the short lives of the recently deceased. Bethany Hillstrom, 1945 to 1953. Deborah Oakes, 1943 to 1953. Mary Naughton, 1948 to 1953. The other graves not quite so fresh, but also marked with the names of girls who died tragically young. South of the church in the cemetery sits a secluded house. It's a small but handsome brick building with bay windows in the front. The door, like all the others in town, has an ashen cross drawn upon it and stands wide open. The inside has been ransacked. Furniture lay tipped over. The stuffing from pillows and mattresses lay strewn about. The drawers have been torn from dressers and desks, their contents littered to the floor. An esoteric mixture of books lines the walls of the study, from treatises on philosophy and spirituality to physics texts and books on mummification. Charred spines with strange glyphs upon them sit among the fireplace ashes, along with half-burned journals scrawled in Cyrillic script. Several scrapbooks lay open on the floor. One contains Polaroids of young girls. Their eyes are sewn shut, and each bears the lines of a Y incision across their chest, the flaps of skin sutured together. Arcane, unchristian symbols are painted upon their naked flesh. An older scrapbook contains a magazine clipping about a young man who escaped the Vinnytsia massacre in Ukraine by hiding among the bodies of a mass grave and sneaking away beneath the cover of night. Gravely injured in a botched execution, young Ivan Chorny remembers nothing after being shot and is convinced he was dead for several hours. Chorny claims that it was the great oblivion, the void of death which he had touched, that shielded him from Soviet detection and allowed him to escape across the Black Sea to Turkey and then emigrate to the West. Another clipping pasted on the opposite page is about the same young man, where he talks about the detached calm of his would-be killers. These men, they were not comfortable with death. They had an intimate connection to it. They were eager servants of oblivion. The man who shot me, you could see it in his eyes, a sliver of the void expanding throughout his soul. He whistled as he shot us into that pit. A wordless hymn floated from his lips, accentuated by the pop-pop of his rifle. By the time a victim had fallen onto the corpses of their friends and family, the executioner had already resumed his song. The road away from the secluded house climbs eastward, edging higher and higher toward the oceanside cliffs. The whistling, first audible at the edge of town, is much louder here. Fine homes line the edge of the plateau, overlooking the dark and grim Atlantic. The houses are too small and cropped together to be called mansions, but impressive enough that the citizens of a little coastal town might consider them such. Bald patches and flattened trails of grass mar the perfectly manicured yards that span the distance from the homes to the cliffs. A gnarled tree behind the largest house clings to the furthest edge of the plateau. Its roots dig into the earth and grow down the face of the alabaster cliffs like thick brown ivy. A dead man swings from a leafless branch that stretches out over the ocean. His limbs are bound and his eyelids are sunken into empty sockets. A whistling song echoes from his breathless lungs. Maybe it's a trick of the wind, but maybe it's not. A cat looks over the edge and mews, its hackles raised. The cliff face, a rough wall of white stone, stretches up from the ocean more than 100 feet over the water's surface. The ivory ridges take on an almost glacial hue in the moonlight. Streaks and splashes of crimson mar the obtuse portions of the cliff face. The black ocean below laps blood from ruined corpses dashed upon the rocks. There is a nocturnal glow to the sea foam, which ebbs and flows in radiant contrast against the dark water. Spilled life adds a tinge of pink to the white caps, which shift and vanish like neon fog. Men and women of all ages lay dead on the rocks and bob among the waves. An old man in oily coveralls lies folded over a rock jutting up from the water, while a young girl with a purple concave cheek is battered against the cliff face over and over. A heavy-set woman floats face down between two rocky outcroppings. The waves occasionally retreat to reveal deep lacerations across her face. Some of the bodies already rest on the ocean floor, their buoyancy robbed by the water in their lungs. No seaside scavengers molest the dead. The crabs and gulls, who are well known to dine on rancid flesh, give the corpses a wide berth. Sea-strewn kelp wilts as it catches on their motionless limbs. A number of the dead drift in the riptide, past the ivory cliffs and toward rocky beaches to the south. Some drift out to sea, others wash up on shore. Between corpses strewn in the sand, briny water puddles up in the footprints leading out of the surf. The beach gives way to brush and forest, and a wordless hymn echoes from the black shadows beyond the woodline. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. That's awesome.
Thank you very much.
So that's for something that's coming up hopefully later this year.
Yeah, I don't know how much of it I'm allowed to talk about, but it should be coming out for Necronomicon.
Okay, great. Something to look forward to, and we can talk a little bit more about other stuff that you can talk about.
Yes.
Later. But I know it's interesting. Listening to your bio, how you describe your work, and your go-to isn't horror. You don't start as you're writing horror. And I was thinking about that while you were reading and realizing that that really is pretty accurate, because your fiction, I find, is always dark.
Yes.
But it's not always, strictly speaking, horror fiction. And I'm thinking of, the first thing that came to mind is The Devoured, which certainly is horrific, which I don't know if everyone knows that was your first novel.
Yes, my first novel.
But it was such a blend of mythology and folklore and all of these cultural elements that it really kind of expanded beyond horror. Is that something that you think is sort of your approach to writing? Are you looking to sort of start with dark things and then see where they can lead you beyond the horror, or is that just how you bring horror into focus?
I think I have a natural inclination towards dark art, whether it's music or fiction or film, whatever the case may be. But, one of the formative influences for me was comics, and comics have always been this, this blend of genre, more so than traditional fiction used to be, I guess. Whether it's horror comics or Marvel or whatever, you would throw in fantasy and horror and fairy tales and sci-fi, and it all became this, it was just kind of, fiction, genre fiction. So I think that's why I write the way I do, because I guess I never set out to be like a horror writer strictly. I just write genre fiction with a very dark slant to it.
Yeah, I can definitely see the comics connection. I mean, now that you say that, because in comics, I think long before it became acceptable in literature and in prose, genre fiction, anything goes. Anything went in comics. There were no limits. You could take a superhero and put him in a medieval setting fighting supernatural creatures, and a time traveler comes and saves the day. And it all made sense, and everybody went with it. So now you've done comics too. Is that something that you find more challenging than prose fiction, or that you enjoy one or the other better?
So I think I'm better at prose writing. I've certainly had more success with it. Comics, I love comics. I get really nerdy about visual storytelling and the mechanics of comics. And I did that. I tried to break into comics for like 10 years before I wrote The Devoured. And it just didn't happen. So it's very expensive. I have thousands of dollars of, 7 pages of this pitch, 7 pages of this pitch, that didn't go anywhere. So, I loved comics. I really enjoy writing it, but it got to the point where I was like, I can't keep taking money away from my family. Let's try something else. And that happened to work out. The Devoured was actually the first prose thing I ever got published before a short story or anything. And so I said, oh, I guess I do this now.
Cool. Yeah. And I mean, so I think everyone, if you haven't read Curtis's work, The Devoured is a great place to start. I think it was the first thing of yours I read, and I loved it. How would you describe that for people who maybe aren't familiar with it?
Weird West, cosmic horror, dark fantasy.
But you had some mythological elements in it.
Yeah, well, I guess I wanted to do. I've always been like, into cosmic horror and Lovecraft and stuff, but I didn't want to do like a pastiche kind of thing. I wanted to do something more original. So I decided to filter cosmic horror through different mythologies. And there's 2 characters in there, and one kind of views everything through Norse mythology, and the other views it through Native American mythology. So I wanted to take these kind of these figures who are, you could call them ancient ones or titans or whatever, whatever you want to call them. And, but these ancient evils and how they manifest is kind of dependent on how you see the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was a fascinating take, and such an unexpected mix of elements, which I think is kind of what I see in a lot of your writing. Now I'm thinking about the Black Heart Boys Choir. And now you're a musician, right?
That's a stretch, but I played in bands.
You have played music. All right. So
there's a keyboard next to me right now, but
excellent.
Not very good at it.
Because that one took things in it's a totally different type of book from The Devoured, and it's so rooted in music and specific elements of music. So I assumed you had extensive musical knowledge, or really did your research?
It was a little bit of both. I mean, I've been playing music. Yeah, I kind of downplayed. I've been playing guitar since I was like 12 years old or something like that. And I played in bands up until I was 25.
Okay.
Now that being said, I was never a good guitarist, but I was competent. But I was always around music. I know a fair amount about it. But before I wrote that, I was only kind of a casual listener of classical music. I liked Beethoven, I liked Mozart, but I really did a deep dive for that book. And part of the reason was because I wanted to do something about outcast kids. I wanted to do something subcultural, but I figured if I made it about any real subculture, it would be stale and like before it came out. Like in Clockwork Orange, Burgess wrote all that weird slang and everything because he didn't want in 20 years, 10 years for somebody to pick it up and Alex is like, oh, let's go for some groovy violence, and it to feel super dated. So that's kind of why I chose to do classical music as the kind of weird, like fake subculture there. But there's also something really, I don't know, something that lends itself to the horrific in classical music as well, I think. And I think it works pretty well. I also had help as far as fact checking. ST Joshi helped me with it. A kid I used to be in a band with helped. So anything I got wrong with musical theory or classical history, they were there to kind of steer me back on.
Cool. Yeah, and it was very effective. I mean, I have sort of, I guess, a surface level knowledge of classical music, and I felt like, okay, I'm out of my depth as far as the musical theory and all of that stuff. So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I mean, do you do a lot of research in general for projects, or do you find? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, probably too much. I enjoy the research part though. But yeah, I do a lot of research for projects.
Cool. And now your most recent book is Devil's Night.
That's the most recent book. I have Devil's Night, which is all short stories. They're kind of loosely connected. That all take place on Devil's Night 1987 in Detroit. And I was kind of going for like a Sin City-ish thing, where, one story kind of is referenced here and, you have a character from that story in the story, etc. And it's a much different feel than The Devoured or Black Heart Boys Choir. It's urban horror, and the city is very much a character. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to write, and that came about just because Joe Morey at Weird House, I'd sent him Black Heart Boys Choir, and at the time he passed on it, but he liked it so much he said, "Why don't you write me a collection?" And told me to pitch him some ideas, and I pitched him that. So
cool. Joe likes short fiction.
Yes, Joe loves short fiction.
Yeah, oh, that's cool. Now the other thing I wanted to ask you about is your podcast, Weird Transmissions.
Yeah, Weird Transmissions is a podcast I try to upload every week. It hasn't been every week since I moved, but I talk to authors, musicians, artists, and basically I try to keep it to dark art in some way, but it's just an excuse to have conversations with people I find interesting. And it's been fantastic. I've had Ramsey Campbell on there. You were on a panel episode. I've had members of Danzig, and, it's been fantastic for just the value of having these conversations with people.
Yeah, no, it's a great podcast. I had a blast when I was on. I think it was Douglas Wynn was on with us, and I'm forgetting who else.
It was the music episode.
Yeah.
It was Todd Kiesling.
Oh yeah, yep. So a lot of the whole lot of us very influenced by music in our writing. Yeah. So, all right. Well, that's great. I put the link for Weird Transmissions in the chat. So if you're up for checking out the podcast, how long has that been running? There must be quite
there's 78 episodes up. So I mean, I've been doing it for a few years. 78 episodes. And if we get a chance at the end, I would like to talk about the anthology I put together that you are in, 13 Haunted Houses. Yeah,
definitely. We will we'll come back around to the what's coming up.
Excellent.
But I was not going to let us get out of here with talking about that. So, all right. Thank you so much, Curtis.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next reader for tonight is Linda D. Addison, the author of 5 award-winning collections, including The Place of Broken Things, written with Alessandro Manzetti, and How to Recognize a Demon Has Become Your Friend. Linda is the recipient of the HWA Lifetime Achievement Award and the SFPA Grand Master of Fantastic Poetry. You can find her online at www.lindaaddisonwriter.com. Let's welcome Linda.
Hey everybody, what's up? Shouting out from the deserts of Arizona here. Okay, so because it's Black History Month, I'm going to read the beginning of my story from the Black Panther anthology that came out. And like, if you don't have this, I don't even want to talk about it with you because you should. It's a beautiful book and it's full of awesome stories by fantastic people. No pictures. You make the pictures in your head. Okay, so my story is called Shadow Dreams. Dira had never traveled so far from her village in her 14 years, except in her dreams. But this was no dream. She was on a train to the capital of Wakanda. As excited as she was about training to become a Dora Milaje, Dara was also very nervous. Everyone in the village was excited, especially her parents and sister. Dara was going to do everything she could to make them happy. More than anything else, Dara wanted to make her grandmother proud. It was her passing that made Dara 2 weeks late to begin her training. The last words from her grandmother were, "Be the best you can for Wakanda." The train pulled into the main station where most of the passengers got off. Dira was waiting on the platform with one bag slung over her shoulder when a tall girl about Dira's age, dressed in a white tunic and pants with a red scarf, walked up. She had a short sword and a waist belt and looked strong. "Hello, you must be Jadira. I'm Uto. Welcome to the Golden City." "Everyone calls me Dira. You are a trainee also?" Dira asked with a smile. "Yes, I hope you aren't disappointed that a full Dora Milaje didn't come to take you to the training facility." Yuto stood with her hands on her hips. "They do have more important things to do." "Oh no," Dira shook her head. "I didn't know we were allowed out as initiates." Yuto laughed and patted Dira on the shoulder. "Well, it's not a jail. Although with all the training we do, a jail might be more relaxing." Dira wrinkled her brow. "Don't worry, you'll be fine. Only the best are given a chance to train. Now let's get you to your new home." They moved through the city with people making space for them because no one wanted to bump into a trainee warrior. The training building rose high into the sky. Before they stepped through the entrance, Yuto faced Dira and put her hands on Dira's shoulders. "Your village is now Wakanda. You are from Wakanda, all villages. You understand?" Dira looked into her eyes and nodded. "Answer out loud." Dira took a deep breath. "Yes." When they walked through the entrance, Dira glanced to the right where the royal palace could be seen through the large lobby windows. "May I ask a question?" "Of course." Dira pointed to the palace. "I didn't realize we'd be so close." "How better to protect Wakanda?" "And the king?" Dira asked. "The king is Wakanda, but you know that." Dira lowered her head. "Yes, I'm sorry." Uto gently lifted Dira's head. "We never bow our heads for anyone except the king, okay?" "Yes," Dira said. "You must be tired from traveling," Uto said. "Would you like to see first? What would you like to see first? Where you will sleep or the training area?" "Oh, I want to see the training area." "This way." They took the elevator up 3 floors. They entered a area that was the rock climbing, walls to the right, running track around the edge, sections for hand-to-hand weaponry, and so forth. Leave your bag here and pick a weapon. Uto pointed to the open shelves to their left. Dira stuffed her bag into a shelf and selected a short blade from the wall before following Uto into the training room. They went over to where one of the teachers was working with a group with short swords. The teacher motioned for Dira and Uto to come to the front of the group. She tapped Dira's blade. So, you are the new arrival? Yes. I can barely hear you. The teacher leaned down. Did you actually speak? Yes, Dira said louder. Several of the others sitting on the ground tapped each other's blades in support. The teacher walked around Dira, taking her in. What is your name? Shadira, but I am called Dira. And where are you from, Dira? Dira opened her mouth to say the name of her village, but instead said, Wakanda. Good. You have learned your first lesson. The teacher said, let's see you disarm me. She grabbed Dira's blade wrist, applied a nerve lock, and swept down with her own blade, stopping within an inch of Dira's neck. When Dira didn't move, she released her, causing her to stumble back and fall to the floor. I wasn't... Dira stopped talking, realizing what just happened. The teacher leaned down, grabbed Dira's hand, and pulled her to her feet. You weren't ready? The Dora Milaje are always ready, Dira said. Yes, even in our sleep. The teacher pointed to one of the seated trainees with her blade. With every inhale and exhale, the student said, ready to defend, ready to die for the king, for Wakanda. The other trainees tapped their blades and shouted, for Wakanda. You aren't a Dora Milaje yet. That's why you're here, the teacher said. Show me the first form for knife disarming. She stood with her blade pointing at Dira, then closed her eyes. Dira went through the form she had been taught since she was 8 years old as fast as she could and bowed when she finished. Very pretty flow. The teacher opened her eyes and smiled slightly. Dira's heart dropped. Your blade made a lot of flat noise. Listen. The teacher raised her blade and swiftly swung it in front of Dira's face, close to her nose. Which is fine if you wish to slap your opponent. She swung her blade again. Dira couldn't see the difference in the angle, but she could hear it as it whistled through the air. What is that sound, Dira? The killing sound, Dira said, looking the teacher in the eyes. Good. At least you know the difference. The teacher nodded to the seated trainees who stood. After dinner, you'll return here to begin blade training. Dira waited for the other trainees to leave. Somehow she lost sight of Uto. The teacher came up to her. Those are lovely clothes, but you need to change into trainee clothes. Did you go to the dorms before coming in here? No, teacher. Dira walked with her to the exit area. My name is Okoye. Come, I'll show you. Thank you, teacher Okoye. Okoye pulled Dira's bag out of the shelf, handed it to her, and smiled. Just Okoye will do. Thank you, Okoye. Dira put the short blade back on the shelf, but Okoye returned it to her. Let this be your first weapon. She took a leather sword belt from the top of the shelf and gave it to Dira, who tied it on her waist and put the blade in. Okoye crossed her arms and smiled. Yes, that's better. So that's the opening to the story. There's all kinds of shenanigans that ensue, which wouldn't happen unless you wanted to have a less interesting story. And also some multidimensional reality, because that's become one of my latest obsessions. But there you go.
Awesome. Multi-dimensional reality. Very cool.
Yes. Thank you so much, Linda.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
That
I
is-
love that story because I am a 15-year dojo mom myself. Both of my kids went through karate and became black belts, and my youngest one is a
Nice.
second degree. So I love the way you wrote that, the respect that is shown, and the potential that child has to learn so much is just, it's like, oh, awesome.
I had a lot to learn to write it. Let me tell you, I'm a research maniac like Curtis. So I don't like to write anything unless I know more than I'm ever going to write about it. So.
And I just love that that book exists and that story exists, because I have to tell you that I first encountered the Black Panther when I was just starting to read, a little kid in my uncle's Avengers comics. And
Right.
He's been one of my favorite characters since then. And about 30 years ago, on a whim, I picked up the first 2 issues of Fantastic Four where he appeared.
Right.
For what would be considered, peanuts today, because now all of a sudden he's hugely popular and really getting the attention the character deserves. And that book is just, that it's there is wonderful.
It's an amazing, amazing thing. And there, as I said, there's so many different stories in it, and from different points of view. I'm always interested in some kind of different slant on it. So my first thought was like, I wonder what it's like to be trained as a Dora Milaje. Then I had to figure it out, because there's none of that in the comic books. But I read everything I could in the comic books, because that's what we were writing from, not the movies.
You ask an interesting question and then you have to answer it.
Exactly, which is how I stay interested personally. But
No, but that's great. So I'm curious, how did you wind up being part of that project?
Well, yeah, no, I was approached.
Cool.
So I got a contact from Jesse Holland, the editor, or my Black Panther, as I like to embarrass and call him. And at the time, I was just still in the middle of long hauling from COVID. And I was just like, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. This is an incredible opportunity. And then I was watching a special about our Black Panther who had passed. And I was just in tears. And then Jesse came at me again. He was like, and I was like, oh my God, I guess I gotta try, and it was a journey writing it that year, but I got it done. So it's just been such a pleasure. And like I said, all the stories in there are just so wonderful, different points of view, just like a wonderful collection and a beautiful book. It's so pretty. It's hardcover. I tell people, you don't have this? How do you not have this? Look at that. It's got like a little 3D thing happening there. Come on now.
That's great. I love that it's Tales of Wakanda too, because that was one of the things that was always most fascinating about the Black Panther is Wakanda, and
Yes.
the contrast in Wakanda to, as a comics nerd, I can say the contrast in Wakanda to the rest of the Marvel universe. It was such a different, unique place, and they had all the vibranium and all the technology, and
I'm saying, I mean, seriously, and it's just, again, we had to write our stories in the realm of the comic books. So for me, it was a little bit harder and easier because there wasn't a lot in the comic books about the Dora Milaje, which took me a while to figure out how to say right, by the way. And and so, but I read everything in the comics that I could about them, and then just had to make sure that whatever I created was sort of in realms with that. Other people did it in different ways. So it was so much fun. So much fun.
Well, we have a special treat for you. This is courtesy of Carol. So I haven't seen this up close yet. So fingers crossed.
Oh, what's getting ready to happen? Is that getting ready to happen?
There you go.
My goddess. Oh my goddess.
That's it. Even Spidey knows a good book when he sees it.
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't even know what to do with this because I want to make it like my profile picture on Facebook now.
I will send it to you.
Okay. And should I credit you? Is that what the credit is? Because I don't want to take
No,
that
I
from the
didn't
book.
actually do it. There's some really nifty software called Mock-Up Shots that helps you put your book covers in pictures. So we actually have, we're allowed to use this. So
Okay,
Very
mock
cool.
up shots.
Mock-Up
Okay.
I
Shots.
can
I'll
see all
send
the
you all the
authors in the
details.
audience writing that
Writing
down.
that down.
Yes,
Woo!
yes. Oh man,
Oh
I
my
should have made
God.
an
I
affiliate
don't
link.
even-
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I don't even know how to love that. I was ready to screenshot. I was like, oh, she get ready to do it.
Oh yeah. That's what it is.
Well,
Yeah.
we will send it to you. Well, Carol will send it to you
Yeah.
properly.
Yay.
We have a question from. Oh, did you want to say something, Carol? Or
Oh no, I was just going to say the same thing. We have a question coming from Teal Glenn a little bit back ago about how, how is it for you to slide from poetry to prose?
It's yeah. I get asked that question a lot. Actually.
I'm sure because we all want to know.
I haven't wanted to write for Wakanda because it was like, who dreams about something crazy like that? Like, I'm a Star Wars freak. I don't dream about writing for Star Wars. It could happen one day. But I mean, when it came at me, I was just like trusting all the muse goddesses that it was going to work out. And I like what I did. So it's all good. It's really interesting question because in the past, years ago, it was a big difference. Now it's not a big difference for me in many ways. And maybe after writing for 50 years, that's what happens. You start incorporating crap. I just write it the same way I write my poetry, is very organically. It starts with something, and it started with, I wonder what it's like. And that's how it ended up sliding into multiple realities because my organic part of my brain just kind of put it all together.
Because Linda Brain, that's the answer. Because Linda Brain, yeah.
It used to be different, but now it's not so much.
Yeah.
Well, we have a question from Brian Matthews.
Hey, Brian, what's up?
This is a tough one, Linda. Other than your story, which is your favorite in Black Panther?
Oh, no, you're not. What are you trying to do? Get me to go into the witness protection program? I am not even.
You have to go hang out with Spider-Man if you answer this one. Yeah.
Ooh, no. I will say that one of my favorite, but they're all my favorite, Cherie Thomas's story.
Cool.
And then Kyoto also did a really cool thing. I mean, because of the themes that, people picked, everyone picked something different. And they're two themes of their stories, which I'm not going to tell you because you need to have the book. I'm just saying. I know.
Excellent advice. Yes, pick up the book, read the book. Were you allowed to use other characters from outside sort of the Black Panther continuity? Like, could you have done a story with Spider-Man?
I don't think so, unless it was in the comic book world.
Okay.
You had to keep it in that realm, and everyone thinks, oh, Black Panther. And like me, the orphan child is wandering in the alley is like, I wonder about the Dora Milaje. How do you see that? How do you become one? Everybody else is like Black Panther and there's other stories that refer to them, but I just got deep into that.
Awesome. So now, have you been writing any new poetry lately?
When am I not writing new poetry, Jim? I'm looking at you now. I'm writing new poetry. You know what I'm saying?
I should know better than to ask that question.
Right? Hey, it worked for Chris when he was listening to Sarah. So, same thing.
Oh, Sarah. I got stories about Sarah, but anyway. Good stories.
No, she's so inspirational. Yeah.
I mean, you all like just see the goddess poet that she is now, but I remember her coming to a World Horror doing an open mic because every time I'm a guest or a host or something, I'm like, you can have an open mic whether you like it.
You got me to read at an open mic. Yeah.
Nice.
I can make anybody read because I got it like that. And
I'll read anywhere, but yeah.
And she read a poem, and when people were leaving, I was like, come here. What? I bought that poem for Space and Time. Then she went on and did collections. Then she went on and won awards.
Ooh,
I mean, I had nothing to do with it. No. I'm not saying I had anything to do with it. I'm just saying I was early. I was one of her early fans.
You were there from the beginning.
Yeah.
And now that she's popular and everything, it's not that much fun anymore because it's like that. No, I'm just kidding.
I look forward to it because I don't think I've ever done a theme poetry collection like she's done.
Okay.
You know, like she does a kick butt job with it, as does Alessandro. But I got something bubbling in the back of my mind.
Nice.
Well, you're going to tell us more about that soon. That's cool.
Not this night, but maybe, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Down the
You know,
road.
I have a question for you. I know that you keep journals and you keep track of these images that you have, and these are your inspirations and all. How the heck do you organize these things? Is it just random things all over the place? I mean, what do you do?
I have finally put my journals into bins with years.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
And
Okay.
so I'm at like 180 of them now. And
Ooh.
I don't organize them so much. You'll notice like I don't have a poetry collection every year, right? You look at how I create them. What happens is that this is going to make no sense. I can't help it. I'm sorry. I get this itch that tells me it's time to do a collection. Unless
it's reached that level in your head.
There's
Okay.
like this pressure that comes, and then I'm like, and then I start looking in my journals the day after my last one came out.
Oh.
And I just go through and I'll find bits and pieces and stuff. And then when I find something, I could literally open any of these and find a line that I would be like, oh, I could write something to that. Here's one from September 9th, 1996. Raven argued with the neighbor over whether living VR was real or real was living VR. I mean, you know what I'm saying? This is like all these little bits and pieces. So if I get that spidey tingle,
I see what you did there.
Then I turn it into a poem. And if I don't, I just move. Oh my God. Honestly, I may not sleep tonight so much. And then the theme comes also the same way. It's also very organic. Suddenly something will hit me as the first poem I did for How to Recognize the Demon How to Recognize the Demon Has Become Your Friend, which is a poem, a story.
Yeah.
I wrote the poem, How to Recognize the Demon Has Become Your Friend. And then as I'm building this thing up, I suddenly realized, oh, that's the title. I don't know. It's like something whispers in my head. And then I wrote the last poem, How to Recognize a Friend Has Become a Demon. So it's very organic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it works.
Cool. Yeah.
It seems to be working so far, so I'm gonna go with that.
Keep it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's cool.
All right.
So yeah, I got lots of poems coming out this year. We'll talk.
Oh, cool. Well, how about if we bring other folks back and get Chris and Curtis in here? We'll talk about what everybody has coming up.
Oh man.
All right. Here we go.
Yeah.
Chris the poet.
See, Chris said he had the book.
Chris is prepared.
All right,
Yeah.
Chris.
I'm glad that you showed that because honestly, you scared me.
Why? Oh.
in a good way, but still, I was not expecting some of that darkness.
It's a horror show, right?
I have had the conversation with so many people in the last couple of years that, you know, there are many different genres. And if you take the group of writers all together, yes, mystery writers are nice and refined, and science fiction writers are cool and, you know, off into the science. Horror writers are the kindest, nicest, most friendly people that I have ever met. And I think it's because we get all that bad juju out of our heads, you know? Yes. So Chris lets it all out, and he's such a lovely, sweet man.
That's very nice of you, and the check is in the mail.
Nah,
Yeah.
no, it's totally loving the poetry, Chris. That first poem, I heard you read the first poem and you had that ending, nailed that ending, because I kind of am that kind of poet. I like a poem that ends, that nails that ending. I was like, oh, I see you.
I saw Linda in the studio. Nice. We can see each other when we're not in there. Linda's going, yes.
Oh my God, it was so good. I was like,
wow. Well, yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, all praise to Sarah, because I don't know what, she hit me like a thunderbolt that night. So
gotta have views.
She gave an incredible reading.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
She's a wonderful reader also. That's how she got me the first time I heard her reading. I didn't even know who she was. I was like, I don't know who you was. I don't care who you are. Come here.
Garrett Boatman in the audience has been one of our readers recently, and he says, "Horror is my religion. I used to tell students who asked."
That's
Well,
cool.
that'll keep them away from you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Oh, well.
Well,
Awesome.
I mean, horror and crime. I mean, they're very. There's a very thin line between the two of them, you know. And I like to write. The horror I like to write is grounded. So far, there's a couple of weird things coming out. So you know, but I think that I mean, I was a reporter for a bunch of years in the Bronx, and the horror I saw there was always, you know.
I lived in the Bronx for a while.
Yeah. So there's beautiful people in the Bronx. There's fantastic people, but when things go dark, they go really dark. So
it makes me think of Tom Piccarelli. Makes me think of Tom Piccarelli, who's passed, but is an incredible horror writer, poet, and thriller writer, crime writer. I mean, I was like, wow,
that's cool.
Well, I don't suppose we have to worry about Curtis, who is currently sitting downstairs in the basement where you hide all the bodies, right?
Yeah.
Well, he seems like such a nice guy, but there's a punching bag right behind him.
There's
some aggression going on there.
I want to know what's inside that bag.
It's a little lumpy, you know.
Is it dripping? That's what I want to know.
It's parts of Jimmy Hoffa. Yeah, yeah. Oh, wow.
I was on Curtis's Weird Transmission.
You were.
End of last year. It was fun. We had
a great panel on poetry.
Curtis, I'll let you know that Linda really talked it up while you were talking about it. And I went and filed it, and I got about 5 or 6 episodes lined up to listen. So,
thank you.
I'm going to be a new fan. There you go.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So what does everyone have coming up? What can we look for in 2022? And I got the year right. So
I've got 3 things. I have Jersey Pines Inc. is doing a trees anthology. And when I pitched them, the submission said, well, you know, we have enough stories about trees. We're really looking for a horror story about moss. So yes, I did it. So we got that going on.
I'm liking it.
It's fun, and I got to have revenge on a neighbor down the block. So there you go. Madhouse Press is coming out with Dark Secrets, and I have a story called Us and Them in there. And Jim Beard, his company is coming out with Running Home to the Shadows, which is essays on the show Dark Shadows. And I was lucky enough to do an essay on there. So far, that's it. I mean, it's no Till James Glenn, but, you know, you got a little bit of something.
Yeah.
That's I'm always amazed at how specific the theme for horror anthologies can get sometimes. You know, it's a tree anthology, and then they've got enough stories about trees.
Right. They were done with trees. They were done with trees.
We need moss.
Yeah, I always find that as a great exercise, you know, find out what they want and then that's the challenge, you know. So it was fun.
Cool. Of course, what have you got on the horizon?
Well, that you can tell us about.
Yeah, I was actually just looking through my email. I'm like, I have like 3 or 4 things that I don't know if I can talk about. But so I do have Blackheart Boys Choir is coming out in a special edition hardcover from Weird House Press, limited to I think 150 signed and numbered copies. Weird House Press, which is Joe Morey's press. He used to run Dark Regions. He founded Dark Regions, but he puts out these gorgeous books. This is a Sherlock Holmes book that he did, and like you get the nice dust cover, you get like you know, the embossed kind of faux leather cover. It's got these nice end papers, book ribbon. So all Joe's hardcovers come out like this. They're gorgeous. So Blackheart Boys Choir is coming out in one of those, as well as I edited my first anthology with him. And Joe actually had never done an anthology in all the years of doing Dark Regions or anything. He tried but never put one out. So we put together 13 haunted houses, which will be coming out in limited edition hardcover first. 150 copies. I think only the first 25 will be signed and numbered. And it's got Ramsey Campbell, it's got Jim Chambers, Douglas Wynn, Sarah Reed, Emma J. Gibbon, Evans Light, Sarah Tantlinger, Tony Richards, Jason Parent, Simon Clark, Tim Curran, Richard Gavin, and Philip Fracassi.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a killer table of contents, and I'm blown away that so many talented authors put their trust in me to make this thing real. And hopefully that's going to be getting to Weird House, like from the printer in the next month or so, hopefully. And then for my other own stuff, I'm doing a collaborative collection, I guess, with Joshua Rex. I forget the exact title, which is the Coffin Maker's Book of something, but it's going to be kind of more Tales from the Crypty. And we're doing 6 stories each. That's also coming out from Weird House. And then I have a collection I'm doing, which will be coming out in August, which I don't think I'm supposed to talk about yet. But I will say that St. Joshi's working with me on it, and he is doing copy edits right now. And then I have a short story coming out in Cosmic Horror Monthly in June, I think.
Cool.
I think that's it. Thank
You're
you.
keeping busy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying.
And I have to say, when that table of contents was released, I was a little bit in a little bit of shock that I was on it.
It's a pretty great table of contents, and I'm very happy to have you in it.
Thank you. Yeah, and I had a blast writing that story. I think, and you, a funny behind the scenes bit, that the story that I sent you was not actually the first story I wrote for that.
Okay.
And I wrote a story, and then I went back and looked at the guidelines and decided, no, this one's not dark enough.
All right.
And did something different. And so I was thrilled that you and Joe liked it.
Yeah, there was a few really great stories that we had to reject because they didn't quite fit the guidelines. You know, we wanted something really malevolent, there had to be something really evil there. And there were some great stories that were really sad, but just didn't kind of get into that, the real malevolence kind of evil thing. Yeah.
Cool. And Linda, what do you have anything you can talk about that's coming up this year?
Just a few, not everything. Like, you know how that is. You know how that goes. I was like that with Twin, who's also in Under Twin Suns. You knew you couldn't let us talk about that till you were ready. Come on now.
Yes. Oh, yeah, no, I understand. I totally get how it works. So
yeah. So just real quick, I gotta say, what like Chris was talking about, writing about moss in a tree thing. I'm that person that writes about the other thing when they come up with a theme, right? They're like, weird tales, like werewolf. We want were things, and I was like, what's the most innocent thing you could think of? This came out last year. I just wanted to say it because Chris was trees and moss, and then I was like, what's the most innocent thing? Could I find something about a bloodthirsty butterfly? And you know I did. You know what I'm saying, Curtis? Curtis, you do enough. There's too many C's here.
I know too many.
Curtis, if you do enough research, you can find something.
You can, absolutely.
You're finding stuff on Google. Stop it.
You know how many people have read so in Blackheart Boys Choir, the demon's a unicorn. It's from actual Goetic folklore or whatnot, and so many people are like, really, a unicorn? I'm like, read it. It's a scary unicorn, man.
I'm just saying. Go ahead and go meat-eating butterflies. Yeah. Purple emperor.
Never even think of that search.
They eat dead things on the ground. And then I had fun with it. I kind of like it. It actually is nominated for a Riesling.
Nice.
That's fantastic. Congrats.
That's thank you. That's from last year. But anyway, this year. So this is out. Trouble the Waters.
Oh, cool.
Which has an incredible cover. And it's an anthology, Tales from the Deep, edited by Cherie Thomas, Pan Morgan, and Troy Wiggins. And these are all my favorite editors. I love them. So I have a poem, go figure, in that. I also have, I kind of went through a little bit with COVID in 2020, and there's a book coming out, an anthology coming out called Bridging Worlds, which I don't have in my hand, but it's coming, it's out soon. And I wrote about my process of how to be creative and like go through what I went through. And it was hard to write. I literally had to write and walk away. It was like a little traumatic. But it has a good ending. So horror with a good ending, you can't beat that. Also, I have I got a story coming out, Predator, Eyes of the Demon.
Oh, wow.
Come on now.
Wow. Wow. You're going all crazy on these stories now, lady.
Yeah.
Wow.
I can only do one a year. It takes me so much research that I can't do anything else. I actually figured out I was ready to nail the story when I started dreaming that I was a predator and hearing their language in my head. That's how much research I did.
Okay.
So as usual, I did something very different in there that I can't talk about, but it's a very different twist on Predator.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
All right. Definitely looking forward to
Very
that. I love
cool.
Predator.
I know some other stuff, but I'm
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. I'm just, I don't want to take over, but
Well, we want to hear everything from everybody forever, but but
go to my
Jim.
site, you can see everything.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in just with some really sage advice from Justin Case. Remember that books are the best Valentine's Day gift.
They are.
Yay.
Seasonally appropriate recommendation. Thank you, Justin.
Yes.
And yes, of the books, the Black Panther anthology is probably the best one.
Recommended by Spider-Man. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can't even wait to put that up on Facebook.
Okay. Now, Jim, you have 2 books coming out from Neo Paradoxa from Eastbeck Books.
Yeah, I
Tell us about
have the Eyes of the Dead, the 4th and supposedly final novella in my Corpse Fauna series, which I write about this in the afterwards. I've been working on for 25 years. I think I started on this in like 1997, and it's finally coming to completion. But I also co-edited the anthology I mentioned up front at the beginning of the broadcast with Carol, Even in the Grave. And I think, Carol, I uploaded that video. I think I'm just going to go ahead and play this little, it's not too long.
Oh, okay. It's less
Is that
than a minute.
Okay.
Sure.
To kind of show off the books, because they're part of a Kickstarter campaign that Eastbeck Books is doing that also includes a really cool novel called Rags by Ty Drago.
I've read an excerpt of that so far, and it grabbed me. I could not stop reading until I ran out of words on it. Yeah, I can't wait to see his book.
All right, here we go. So Carol made that video, and she did a fantastic job. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you. I am no Lou Era. I do not have filmmaking background. That was basically slides, but that was fun. That was fun.
It was wonderful. And you want to know what's going to go into my journal tonight?
What's going to go into the journal?
The Dust of Flesh. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah.
My
That's
pleasure.
awesome.
I'm honored that anything I'm associated with made it into your journal.
Yeah, that's exciting. Yeah.
So
Now, and on my side, of course, there's the Even in the Grave anthology. We're going
yeah.
to tell you about a couple events with that in a second. But I also have a novella coming out from Eastbeck Books in April, which is called Forget Me Not. They have a really cool cryptid series, and they do things with a cryptid subscription box. So every couple months, people who subscribe to this get a box with all sorts of cool stuff about a cryptid. And
Yeah.
periodically, there's a book in there as well. So I can't say which mine is, but it'll be coming in April.
Very cool.
And
The Cryptid Crate.
the Cryptid Crate.
Nice.
Yeah. So what we wanted to do, we were pretty excited about ghost stories because, horror and ghost stories. And we've been reading all of these fabulous stories from this anthology. And we've had so much fun with it. Well, we wanted to ask a few of our authors to come and do a panel and talk about why do you like ghost stories? So we're going to do that this Saturday night. It's some
There you
folks from Even in the Grave, and our publisher, Danielle Ackley McPhail, who many of you may know. We're going to ask the three authors who are available at that time, Randy Dawn, Teal James Glenn, and Amy Greck. Why do you like ghost stories? Why do you like ghosts? Why do you like ghost stories? So I think it'll be fun to talk about. And, Saturday night, sit back. It's BYOB because it's virtual. So, you don't have to drive anywhere. You can, listen in your jammies if you want. It'll be fun.
You
That's
can
gonna be
find
great with those three too, because they got great energy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very lively. Cool.
I'm trying
Thank
to find the link for the Eastbeck Books YouTube channel, which is where it will broadcast.
I think we have it in there. La.
I can even better. I can throw up the link for the actual stream.
Oh, that's a good
and
idea.
we're going to be joined by Robert Masterson as well, another contributor
Oh,
who
great.
signed on. Yes.
Oh, his story is way cool. Yeah. The neat thing about this book is the stories are very different. Some of them are contemporary New York City, which, is great because we have a lot of folks from the New York area. And some of them are from the past, historical. We've got seance stuff. We've got Japanese historical. We've got all sorts of cool things in there, but they all involve something with a ghost. That was our key guideline.
We have one of the funniest ghost stories I've ever read, and we have one of the bleakest ghost stories I've ever read. So
yes,
quite a range.
Yeah. So
we were talking about how you do a balance when you do an anthology. That's how you do it, Jim.
Well, we got some great stuff. So fingers crossed, everyone enjoys the reading experience and has a chance to check it out.
Yes. And we have one more event that we're going to do. Our friend Angela Eureka Smith from Space and Time magazine is interviewing me and Jim and Ty, the other author from these three books, about what's going on with the Kickstarter, which is called Ghosts and Ghoulies and Other Creepy Things. That's coming up on Sunday at 12:30. There's plenty of time to watch that before the Superb Owl event. So check that out. We will put the link up on our social media. I'm sure you guys have seen our social media stuff this last week or two, and maybe everywhere. Yeah.
So we've got lots going on.
Yeah, it's really so much fun to work with so many great people. It's great. It's great. And then we also have we did mention our reading in 2 weeks at Syosset. I think we have an image for that one, right, Jim? Yeah, here it is.
Okay.
So there's Megan, Amy, Carol, and Nicole. And so that's going to be coming up. Yep, 7:30, 2 weeks from tonight on Thursday the 24th. So it's online. Yay.
That should
I
be
did that last year. It was wonderful. I love the structure of how it was done. It really
Yeah, and they are big horror fans, which I think is just fabulous. Librarians who are horror fans. It's wonderful. Yeah.
It's awesome. And they're big supporters of the HWA Summer Scares program and the library outreach. So it's been great working with them. Yeah, that's terrific. Oh wow. All right. So I guess we've pretty much come up to our time and perhaps a little over, but that's okay. Anybody have some parting words for the audience tonight?
I had a question.
Yeah.
Chris, did you say you were doing a horror story in verse?
The readings, the 3 poems are part of that. Yeah, I have a detective series, Mallory and Gunner, and while they will never be the point of view, they will make life difficult for this guy, and it's kind of been fun to watch him write in these. He writes poems compulsively. So yeah, that the goal is that the story will be, you can read a poem as standalone, but it also will collectively tell this crime horror story from the evil guy's point of view.
I have one thing to say, Chris. Swoon.
Wow.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. I'm good now.
I want to see it.
I have one other thing to say. I just wanted to give a shout out to Justin Case, who is watching us from Europe, where it is now 3:31 a.m.
Wow,
So thank you for tuning
Justin.
in.
Thank you.
Awesome.
That is
Thank you to everyone.
Yeah.
He wins.
The
He
other
wins.
thing, and the last thing to just say, if you're watching on YouTube and if you have not yet, please go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and do that little thumbs up thing, because they like that and they show us to more people that way. And all of our shows, if you haven't seen one live, they're all on there in recordings. You can go back and look at them and enjoy them at your leisure and tell all your friends.
All right. And just so you know, we will be back next month, and the second Thursday of every month. We're not going anywhere. You can't get rid of us, and if you try to kill us, we will come back. But join us.
You cannot
here
hide us
again.
in Curtis' basement. Yeah.
As Carol said, click subscribe to follow future Galactic Terrors transmissions, and you can also join our pretty nifty newsletter. We do not spam you, right, Carol?
Right. As a matter of fact, I have to try to remember to send it out every month. So no, we don't spam you. Yeah, definitely.
We send it twice, once to announce the upcoming session, and then just once to remind you a few days ahead of time that it's coming up.
Yeah.
And now I don't have, I have the next card up for March 10th is our next reading. I have two of our readers. All right.
We know 2 of them. We
So
have
next
John
month,
and John.
John Foster and John Palisano will be reading.
Very nice.
And mystery guest.
Dun, dun, dun. We have to find another horror writer named John so that we can thoroughly confuse ourselves.
That's it.
Yeah, because I'm struggling with Chris and.
I noticed. I know.
You know, and my wife's name is Christine Ryan.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh my God.
I did know that.
You did. You mentioned it in the email.
Yes.
Linda, it's either Christus or Curtifer. That would be fine. There you go. You just mix this together. That would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Christine Ryan. God bless her.
No.
Now wait a minute. We also have Anna Taborska has been listening in. So Justin's not the only person from on the other side of the water. So thank you, everybody. Holy cow,
Very
you guys
cool.
are
Very
fabulous.
cool.
Thank you
Yeah.
for everybody who tuned in tonight. We really appreciate you coming to
And,
listen and chat with us in the chat. So.
Before we sign off, I just want to share. I think as usual, Stephen Van Patten has summed things up nicely about horror writers. We don't die, we multiply.
Nice.
He
Thank
even
you, Stephen.
rhymes. He's a poet. You don't know it.
Stephen, my Stephen. My
Yeah.
Stephen Van Patten.
Cool.
All right.
Oh, you
Well, I
guys are
want
so
to
much
thank
fun.
you, Linda, Christopher, and Curtis for joining us tonight. This has been a pleasure. We appreciate you sharing your stories with us and telling us what you're up to and talking about writing.
Yeah.
It's always a treat to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Great opportunity. Thank you. Nice to meet everybody.
Happy to be here.
Thank you very much to our audience. We hope you'll be back next month. And on that note, take care.